didn't she do that? Is that so?
Part of it is an old sports injury, and it's just getting more aggravated, you know, it's buckled around her a few times, so I mean, it's gone out. Something like that, you know?
Damn, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah,
Yeah, that stuff catches up to you once you reach a certain age.
yeah, it seems to, you know?
I don't have the time.
Oh, isn't that busy, huh?
Oh, people just drive me crazy.
Okay, thank you. Like to call a meeting to order. It's 7:03. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Thank you.
We're gonna start business here. Thank you. Joe, you want to give roll call?
Sure, Lisa Hurd, Mary's here, Joe Leggett, Kenny, Jim Smith, and Mr. Lesson. And Agent Dave.
Okay, thank you. All right, I want to remind everybody this is being recorded for television. And we're going to start out with a continued hearing for Wareham Fire District. Kara Kleinfelder?
Just me.
Okay, I'm going to step down for this hearing because of conflicts, and Joe will run the meeting.
Hi, could you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name's Andy Reed. I'm the water superintendent for the fire district.
Just hang on for a second.
Change it a little again.
That's small. Okay, Dave, do you want to lead off on this again? Refresh our memory?
Sure. This project site is off of Maple Springs Road, and the project involves the installation of a new water main, some of which is in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Approximately 3,100 feet of 14-inch water main is to be installed from an existing town well, number 6, to the existing main near well number 3 on Maple Springs Road. Again, some of this work is in the buffer zone to wetlands, some of which is cranberry bog, and some of which is natural bordering vegetated wetland. The nearest work to the wetland is approximately 50 feet away. The trench work would be within or just along the edge of the existing gravel road that runs within the existing electrical easement at this location. Hay bales would be installed between the work and the resource areas in the locations where the work is in the buffer zone to the wetlands. We'd continue this meeting, or this hearing at the last meeting because we did not have the abutter notification cards, which we have since received. We also do have a DEP file number, so at this point I would recommend the approval of the project and the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions for the project.
Okay, would you like to add to that or anything else?
No, that pretty much clarifies it.
Okay, does the board have any questions?
None?
No?
No question?
Okay, I have no questions. Okay, I took a motion to close the hearing.
See if there's anybody in the audience.
What's it? Oh, anybody in the audience want to speak against or for this? Okay.
I move to close the hearing.
Second?
Okay, Alyssa made the motion to close. Mary second. Vote.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous to close. Next motion.
Motion to accept the project. How do you say it?
With the standard stipulations?
What?
With the standard stipulations?
With standard stipulations.
Second?
Second?
Okay, Alyssa made the motion. Mary second. Beat Jim out. Vote of the board?
No.
Aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Oh, can you tell Kenny we're ready for him? Rob, come on.
For the pipeline?
Yeah.
Okay, second continued hearing will be notice of intent for Adrian and Rhonda Machad, Mishad, Carrie JC Engineering.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
David will highlight.
The project site is at 97 Blackmore Pond Circle, and the project involves the construction of a single-family home in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. The driveway to access this dwelling is actually proposed to come off of Carmichael Way. There's a 32 by 24-foot dwelling proposed, approximately 90 feet from the edge of the pond. The proposed limit of work is approximately 68 feet from the edge of the wetland or the pond. Other work in the buffer zone includes tree clearing and grading as shown on the site plan. The wetland line was checked for this project initially, and there was a change made to the wetland line. The change is reflected on the current plan that you have in front of you tonight. The proposed septic system is a nitrogen-reducing system and would be outside the buffer zone to the wetlands. This would be a raised system, and so there's a retaining wall proposed on one side of the proposed septic system to contain that, and that's at the side closest to Carmichael Way. The system would be raised approximately 4 feet above existing grade. Hay bales and silt fence would be installed between the work and the resource area. They also show a dewatering containment area on the plan in case they need to do that during the excavation for any of the work at the site. We do have a DEP file number for this project. So with that, I would recommend the issuance of the order with the standard conditions and the added conditions for dewatering if that becomes necessary during the project.
Okay, you have anything to add?
That pretty much covers everything.
Okay, questions from the board? Rob?
No.
Jim? Joe?
No questions.
Mary?
No question.
Alicia?
I just have a question. Are you going to be putting lawn all around your house, all the way down?
No, it's going to be left natural.
Okay.
Anybody from the audience?
Paul Cohen, Blackwell Pond.
Yes, can you come up to the table and identify yourself and speak into the mic, please?
Paul Cohen, Blackwell Cranberry Bogs in the butter. I think everything looks great. I have no problems with this at all.
Okay.
See if there's anybody else.
Anybody else? No? Okay, I'll take a motion from the board.
Motion to close.
Second.
Joe's motion, seconded by Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Further motion?
Okay, motion to grant with the standard stipulations, and additionally, Dave, how'd you say that? for the dewatering?
Conditions for dewatering, right?
In conditions for dewatering.
Joe's motion,
Second.
seconded by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
tight fit.
It is. Well, that's,
That's a tight fit.
that print that we saw was a lot different than
Yeah.
the print that David.
Take those other prints.
I was gonna run them down with a
We can do this other one. Okay, the next continued hearing is a notice of intent, David
Coffin hour.
Coffenhauer, Carol Leary, FP LLC.
See, they're looking to continue that one, so there's not gonna be anybody here.
Oh, okay. They requested a continuance till January 3rd.
See if there's anybody in the audience.
Is there anybody in the audience for this hearing, particular hearing? No, okay.
All right, do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
Motion to continue to the January 3rd.
Second.
Joe's motion, seconded by
Harry?
Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay. It's 7:15. We'll start the regular hearings.
Okay.
Jim?
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, at 7:15, on the request for determination of applicability for Guy Campina, care of GHD Incorporated, 1545 Iona Road, Hyannis, Massachusetts, to upgrade the Heinz Field and Cohasset Narrows pumping stations for property located on the Assessors Map 1, Onset, and 6, Cranberry Highway, lots 1031 Onset and 1001 Cranberry Highway, 248 Onset Ave, and 3254 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Hi.
Three of them here.
Okay, thank you.
There's three of them. One near you.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't need to make a disclosure. I don't own the place.
No, you're not direct about it. Well, you are, but there's no conflict there.
No.
Okay, can you identify yourself for the record?
I'm Anastasia Vadenko with GHD.
Thank you. David Highline?
Sure. The project is actually at two locations, which are two town sewer pump stations. One is at Lopes Field on Onset Ave, and the other is at the Cohasset Narrows on Cranberry Highway. The project involves the installation of bypass connections at these two sewer pump stations to create a connection point for sewer trucks to hook up to in the event of power or equipment failures at these pump stations. This is part of an effort to address flood resiliency for these stations. Trench work would be done to install underground piping at these two locations. At the Lopes Field Station on Onset Ave, the trench work would take place within the fenced-in area of the pump station and connect to the existing force main in the street on Onset Ave. An above-ground access pipe would be visible to connect to the bypass. This work would be within the coastal flood zone, but not in the buffer zone to any other resource areas. At the Cohasset Narrow Station, which is at 3254 Cranberry Highway, the work would again involve trenching to install the underground piping work, and also would tie into the existing force main at that location. This work would take place within the pavement area at the site and would be in the buffer zone to a coastal bank. Again, there's an access port that would be visible from the surface once it's installed. The work required is not incredibly extensive. I would recommend the approval of the project with the issuance of a negative determination number 2.
Okay, you have anything to add?
think that sums it up nicely, unless you have any questions.
Okay. Rob?
I do not.
Jim? Joe?
Just one quick one. Are you gonna be, the one, on Onset Ave, are you gonna be running into groundwater when you do your trenching work there, or you think you're gonna be okay? I'm thinking dewatering.
We may, and that'll be done as part of construction if we hit it.
Okay. No other questions?
Mary?
No question?
Lisa? Anybody in the audience? Okay, seeing nobody, take a
Motion to
motion.
close?
Second.
Joe's motion, second by Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Further motion?
Motion to grant, standard stipulations,
-2.
-2.
Second.
Joe's motion, seconded by Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next hearing. Jim, when you're ready. All set?
Okay.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, at 7:15 PM. On the notice intent for Gary DeMolan, Kara
DeMolan.
McKinnon and Keys Engineering, 23 Look Mill Lane, Rochester, Massachusetts, to install a septic system for property located on Assessors Map 20, Lot 6, 20 Over Jordan Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
I'm not with it tonight. Okay, is anybody here for that hearing? No? Okay. They requested a continuance till January 3rd.
So moved.
Joe's motion,
Second.
seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you. Next one, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, at 7:15. On the notice of intent for Bruce Miller, heir of GAF Engineering, 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, to construct a seasonal aluminum pier for property located on Assessors Map 125, Lot M2, 258 Barker Road, East Wareham, Massachusetts.
I hear.
Evening, I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering.
Thank you. David?
This project site is at 258 Barker Road, and the project involves the installation of a dock in White Island Pond. A 4 by 40-foot aluminum dock is proposed to be installed. The dock would be a seasonal dock and would be removed before the winter. Pipe piles are proposed to be installed at the end of the structure. The application proposes to leave these in year-round. I would recommend that the outer piles out at the water end of the dock be removed when the dock is removed, so you don't have two pilings out in the middle of the water there in case it's taken out early enough where other boaters might still be out there and potentially not see them and hit them. There would be approximately 3.2 feet of water at the water end of the dock. I did have a question about what boats would utilize the structure, if there's any at this time that are known, and if they, adhere to the standards that we have relative to water depth below the boat. So that would mean that you'd have to have at least 12 inches of water between the lowest part of the boat and the bottom. We do have a DEP file number for the project. I generally don't have a problem with the location for there to be a dock there, so I would recommend the approval of the project with the standard conditions and the added conditions that the outer pipe piles be removed in the off-season along with the dock, and that the dock be stored in an upland area, and also that the boats utilizing the structure meet the standard in terms of the draft to have at least the 12 inches of water between the bottom of the vessel and the bottom.
Bill?
On the boat, it's my understanding that they're gonna use a pontoon-style boat out there, and I thought the draft on it with the motor in the down position was roughly 3 feet. I think the boat would be stored with the motor in the up position, but the restriction on the length of the pier kind of dictates how far out we can go. The pond is kind of, I don't think it increases in depth too much as you go further out into the water. So, there might be, that's the boat that they're planning to use there, and I think that the boat itself maintains that, the distance from the bottom, but the skeg of the motor would be down, I think, closer than a foot from the bottom substrate.
Well, that's going to be an issue then, because that doesn't really meet the standard. They might have to consider a smaller boat or a different boat,
Or modifying the boat to have have a plate installed on the rear to raise the motor up.
But also, if it's a 3-foot draft and it's 2.5 feet at the end of the dock, is it going to be sitting on the ground?
It's 3.2 at the end of the dock.
My mistake.
Yeah.
I thought it was yeah, okay, 3.2, that's right. I guess we would just have to condition it to have the motor adjusted on that, but if that's the boat that he intends to use it. Currently, I think they drag it right up on the beach, so I believe that the dock would be an improvement over how they currently land and utilize the facility, or the boat rather. But, an added condition to adjust the motor height, I guess, would be the other condition.
Is that possible, to modify the boat?
Well, they do make what's called a jack plate for the rear of some boats, where hydraulically it can raise the motor up and down. Whether that's an option, or whether a modification to the transom would need to be made so that the engine would be raised up, would be another option.
I think we probably should see something of that nature before closing out the hearing. Again, I don't have a problem with the location, but I think this issue should be dealt with and addressed.
Are they not normally raised up anyway when they're docked?
Are they?
Well, I mean, I do
Well,
mine.
some do and some don't, but, nobody's gonna be there babysitting it to see if they are, so,
Well, if
that's
it
why you
drags
gotta-
the bottom, they will.
yeah.
I guess,
I mean, it's not healthy for the,
Right.
no, it's not healthy to be sucking sand up through the water pump, which is located in the lower half of the motor. But, we do recognize what the bylaw states in it. And I think that it's beneficial to the owner of the boat not to drag it through the sand.
Right. Generally, if there's an electric lift anyway, they just, they hit the button and, you know, up it comes, and then they kill the motor and, you know, coast the rest of the last couple of feet or whatever. Nobody runs their prop through the bottom if they can help it.
Not good for the prop either.
Not intentionally, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it done, so.
Okay, anything else on that
I
side?
have a question, actually, on the
Go ahead.
pipes at the end. How are they anchored, and are they easily removed at the end of the year? Is there actual re-digging?
They're
and
just hand pounded into the,
Just hand
Yeah,
pounded?
they're just
Okay.
driven,
Yeah.
in. You know,
That's fine.
we've seen some people put a sleeve in the ground, but that sediment kind of finds its way into that. So I think the removal and just the replacement, those docks kind of fold up and are easily moved, so I don't think that it would be problematic to do that.
Okay, I was just wondering how they were removed. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Big, strong guy.
That's it?
No, I have nothing.
Joe?
Yeah, you said this is what size is the pontoon boat?
I'm not certain on the length of that. I thought it was in the yard.
Yeah, because by rights, those things don't draw that much water.
They don't.
No, but
the boat doesn't.
one does have.
The motor.
The leg of the motor does stick down on it. You know, Brian and I talked about it today, and he actually measured it in.
It is down that far, huh?
Yeah, it wouldn't be on the bottom, but it would not meet the 1 foot of clearance from the end.
So you need something like a power trim if it's a large size one. Okay, no problem with taking those poles out at the end. Okay, no other questions?
Mary?
No question?
Alicia?
Okay, I'm still not getting it, all right? We have a boat with a draft of 3 feet.
Pardon?
We have a boat with a draft of 3 feet, or is it less? No, I'm not talking about the motor, because we can lift that.
The draft of the boat is not 3 feet.
Okay, so I
The draft of that
misheard
boat is
you.
something quarter of a foot.
Okay, great, thank you, no more.
Anybody in the audience? Wow, this is going good. Okay,
Okay, so
wish of the board.
we're gonna continue this?
The documentation.
That's what I would recommend, but that's up to the board.
Okay,
I think we should, yeah.
Me too.
okay. Your motion?
Okay, I'll make that motion. The 3rd okay with you, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. Make a motion to continue this to the 3rd.
Joe's motion?
Second.
Second by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Can I ask a question on that? As far as the remedy to the situation, would it just be an alteration of some sort to the boat is what we'd be looking at to achieve that 12 inches?
Yeah, probably a power trim or, it goes right on the mount. Actually, it's part of the mount, and it just using the 12 volts.
Well, I'm pretty sure it has power trim on it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, it's a big enough boat to need a big enough motor that no
I mean,
one
like
wants to.
50 horse motor
Nobody
with
wants to
power
haul a
trim
thing.
on it.
Yeah.
Well, if you pay for it, you'll have it.
Would a picture suffice us, Dave?
Yeah, whatever he has in writing or, detail to show how it's gonna be addressed.
And the owner has an understanding of why we're seeking that?
Okay.
Okay, next hearing.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Bill finished?
It's his anyway.
Okay, notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, at 7:15 PM, on the notice of
Already
intent
missed
for
the boat.
Man Farms, care of GAF Engineering, 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, to renovate and square off existing cranberry bog sections and construct dike roads for property located on Assessors Map 59, Lot 1027, 269 Hathaway Road, Wareham, Massachusetts. you. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
You need a copy too? You can look at it.
Oh, you have a large one?
Take a small one. Thank you.
Steve, I got the other prints on.
Here you go.
Going back. I like these.
Only have an engineer here on behalf of me.
Thank you. David?
The project site is lot 1027 off of Marion Road and Hathaway Road, and the project involves renovating and squaring off existing cranberry bogs, constructing dike roads, and installing new flumes. The existing bogs would be renovated and reshaped according to the new plan. This will result in an increase in bog area. I was curious to ask what the net increase in the bog area would be. I also had a question about how will the stream within the bog system be contained during the construction so as to prevent silt from flowing downstream during the project. There was also a note in the notice of intent that said the application was to improve the capacity of the tailwater recovery pond. So I was curious, what does that involve? Because I didn't see anything per se on the plan.
Is that over here?
Also, the notice of intent shows silt fence for erosion control. On the first phase of this project, we did require silt fence and hay bales, so I would recommend that. We did get a DEP file number late in the day, but I would really like to hear some answers to the questions about containment and how it's going to be dealt with relative to the stream, because the other piece that was done did not have that flowing through it, so this site's a little bit different.
Okay, I think one of you has my plan that has my net increase of area on it with the pencil, with my pencil.
Plus 1.01.
Oh,
That's
that's the one?
net increase on each one of the.
Would you like that back?
All right, I can give him one of these.
I need to know what the numbers are. It was 1.5
That's okay.
acres.
We're good.
1.5
We're good,
acres
Bill.
net
We're
increase.
good.
I do remember that.
You need it back?
Okay.
With respect to the tailwater recovery, that, there is no work on the tailwater recovery pond proposed. That was a note that was carried over from the previous,
Okay.
from the previous filing. Similarly, the previous filing was for the renovation of the two bogs that were most recently done. But, several years ago, I think we did the renovations on the south side of Route 6 in the stream channel. Ran through those sections. As far as I recall, all we provided was some erosion control barriers at the flume structures at each one, and tried to pump any water around the bog sections that were being reconstructed in the event there was any water flow in them. I think that they would try to do the work when the season of the year and the water table is at the lowest and the driest part of the year. But that work tends to take a little bit more time than what you think. And the points are all taken as far as the sediments. I think that we just have to isolate the bog sections and pump any water around the section being constructed. The water source that supplies those bogs comes from the Blackmere Reservoir. The reservoir is just to the far left-hand side of the site, and there's a large flume that discharges into that bog section W3. So that's how the water is fed through it. There's a little bit of groundwater that flows through it, but predominantly it's a flow-through bog water source, would come from the reservoir. On the downstream end, there's a tailwater pond where the downstream end of the project, not this project, but the downstream end of the bog system itself, on the south side of Route 6, there's a tailwater pond down there that has the ability to receive the water that can be returned back to the reservoir. So that's how we would try to manage the water flows to prevent any sediment from going into the estuary that ends up into the Weaglianic River. So there's a couple of things that we could do there.
Yeah, because on the other side of Route 6, when they did those, they did get a lot of silt and sediment going downstream. It wasn't really good at certain times, so they had to do some corrective things, and so I just don't want to see that scenario again, you know?
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult, it will be difficult, if we do run into those types of conditions. So I think that we just have to plan to manage the water flow and bypass it around the bog sections that are not under construction, or that are under construction rather.
Yeah, I'd like to see something to show how that's going to be done, or in writing, or something to that effect. Are they going to do one piece at a time, or are they going to try to do like all of it? Because I know, again, on the other one, they did kind of all of it at once.
Well, which one are we talking about? The one on the two that are on this plan here, they were done at the same time. On the opposite side of Route 6, I think they did each one separately. But, you know, it is more efficient to push off those vines all together. I mean, I think it really is gonna be dependent upon how many acres he wants to take out of production at one time for any given year. So I guess I will talk to Keith and, you know, come back with a little bit more information as to the sequence of operations and what he's really planning on doing there.
Okay, and did you say that now there's the ability to sort of contain the water instead of letting it flow out the end into the estuary and pump it back up to the reservoir? Because that wasn't the case in the one on the other side of Route 6 when they were doing those. You didn't really have that at that point.
Right, but they do have that pond there. They do capture that water and pump it back to the reservoir. Water supply, you know, that's a very shallow stump swamp back there, and it doesn't have a tremendous amount of capacity, so water has always been an issue with him down there. You know, so we do want to return it. I don't know exactly what he has done there, whether it's just a simple matter of a flume that goes into that tailwater area. It's like a canal that's it's in between Route 6 and the Bog Dyke Road. You can see it when you drive by. But I'll come back with a little bit more detail as to how that will be handled.
Okay, yeah, because generally I don't have a problem with what he ultimately wants to try to accomplish. I just would like that information, and we need to condition this so that we don't end up with that issue. So I think a continuance would be good at this point.
Okay, anybody got any questions beforehand?
No.
This side?
No questions.
Okay. We'll continue it.
Okay.
Joe?
Okay, we'll motion to continue this to January 3rd.
Second.
And just one thing you mentioned something about the erosion control. When I went over the project with Keith before we filed it, you know, he did ask us to remove the erosion control barriers. Predominantly due to the fact that we have the bogs are a lower depression in there, and he didn't see the need to provide an erosion control barrier at the perimeter of a dike road where he was stripping out the bog and disturbing all that soil there.
Stop it anyway.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think there's some spots where it's needed, but not along the proposed dike roads and so forth, because you're going to be tearing all that bog up anyway, so.
Yeah. We did show it around that little isolated wetland, I guess to I don't know, the east of the site, there is some erosion control around that. And that was the only area where we left it. There will be some bog dike road work there that we would need to provide the erosion control barrier adjacent to that wetland.
And down at the far, if you want to call it southern end, where the exit flume is, there'd have to be something done with that somehow to kind of contain that. Unless, depending on what we hear for the methodology of how it's going to be done.
I think we might, what I think that I would recommend there is we'll be blocking off, just as a point of discussion tonight, I think that we'd be blocking off that flume, placing a pump there and returning that water back to the reservoir.
Yeah, instead of letting it go all the way down.
All the way down the end. So that's likely the way that would be handled.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Bill? Yeah, okay, you already
did that.
already did that, all right. I'll catch up. Next one, please.
Okay, notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in 320 Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, December 20th at 7:15. On the notice of intent for Patricia A. Chase, care of J.C. Engineering, 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Massachusetts, to repair the footing of an existing concrete seawall for the property located on Assessors Map 3, Lot 248B, 45 Prospect Street, Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts.
That's the one down Crystal Island.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering, representing Patricia Chase, who's with us this evening.
Right. All right. Yeah, the site is at 45 Prospect Street in Onset, and the project involves repairs to the footing of an existing seawall. And this is along a coastal beach and a coastal bank. The length of the wall to be repaired is approximately 50 feet. The applicant has proposed two alternatives on the plan. One involves installing a poured concrete footing, and the second alternative involves driving vinyl sheet piles in front of the existing footing and then backfilling that gap with concrete. The vinyl sheet piles would then be cut off at the height of the footing. The vinyl sheet pile option would involve less disturbance to the coastal beach area. So that would be my recommendation for the two considerations. Concrete would have to be pumped into the site from the upland side. The only access to the area is really across the beach, and I did speak to Brad about this. There would need to be equipment traveling over the beach to get to the work area. And so there would have to be some mats and something identified on the plan to show where that would occur. We did get a DEP file number late in the day for this. I don't have a problem with the project. There needs to be some repairs made there. We just need to get the details of the methodology identified, and then it can be approved and conditioned from there. So, Brad, were you still of the viewpoint to get a revised plan, or?
I'm sure it's either way. I don't know if it's something that can be conditioned.
Well, first question is, what's the
All right.
applicant's thing on the
All right.
vinyl sheet piles of the footing? Which one did you want to go with?
The vinyl sheet piles,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's either a revised plan or conditions added to the order that specifies mats that are necessary.
One more question that we talked about was, I would imagine that the Beach Association is conscious of what you are proposing. Have they given you some sort of formal letter saying that they're okay with it yet? Yeah.
Yeah, and just identify yourself so that the record knows
We would just
who you
want to
are.
make sure that they formally are good with it.
Hello, my name is
Hi.
Patricia Chase. I'm the owner of 45 Prospect Street. This is my husband, Jeff.
Right.
We prefer going with the sheet pile. That's the way to go. And I am vice president of the Beach Association.
Oh, that makes it easy.
President-elect in August. And Louise and I have talked about this. I mean, we could put something in writing that's not an issue.
Okay.
If you don't mind me saying, this wall was repaired by my dad, who has since passed, in 1999. And I have a book here if anybody's interested in seeing it, but he had the matting, like you said, all the way across the beach and brought all the equipment in and had to do massive repair.
Yeah. Okay.
This past winter, when we were away, a storm or two came in March, and we lost 12 to 14 inches of sand, and that being the case, undermined the wall. Where my house is up above, we're concerned.
Right.
Because now we're year-round residents there, whereas before it was a summer home only.
Right.
And you came out there, Dave, and met with me.
Right.
Yeah. We're just trying to make it right, so it stays in position. And we brought our neighbors.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with obviously fixing it. As far, Brad, as, these pictures, like she said, shows more or less a total reconstruct of the other piece, which isn't gonna happen.
That's not what's proposed.
So
I
you
wanted
won't-
to show you what was done when they did the wall
Right,
back.
so in terms of a machine, what size machine do you envision? You wouldn't need something like that, would you?
Probably not that big of an excavator, because
Yeah.
it'd be just something small enough to drive
Drive the
those
piles.
piles. They shouldn't be going too deep, so they're not gonna be very, very tall.
Okay. Yeah, so it's up to the board. If you want to approve it with conditions, that's the board's option to require the matting. She's with the association, so obviously they're aware of it.
Well, obviously, looking at what has transpired there already, they're well aware of what they're doing. So,
You said there was a massive
problem with
fix
it.
back in '99.
Yes.
What would the lifespan of this type of fix be?
Well, this is to correct or prevent any more erosion from underneath the footing. Half of that wall was repaired, and the footing the beach had probably about 2 more feet of sediment on it. So as they were coming away from the water, they stepped the footing up so they weren't digging so deep. Well, with 2 feet gone, now you've exposed the step in the footing. And again, further up near the end where the stairway is, you probably have more than adequate sand at this point, but, if you lose another 2 more feet.
Sure. I guess the question might have been meant a little more like
The wall itself,
the
I
actual
mean, I guess.
product. How does the product react to, the environment over time?
Yeah, the sheet piles, I think, would be fine. It's
Look at it, 10
lifespan of the
years, 20
concrete.
years.
I think the vinyl sheets are actually rated for like 50 years.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's the question.
yeah.
Not my problem. Not at that time, not 50 years down the road.
Come on, we're all immortal.
okay, Joe?
I have no questions. I'd feel comfortable conditioning this.
Yeah.
Depends on how everybody else feels.
Mary? No question? Alicia?
I think it can be conditioned, especially using the DEP suggestions that they have. They seem very reasonable that we received, so. And let Dave know when you're working.
We'd like to be able to do it come early spring.
So as far as the concrete, is that what you envision pumping it, or are you gonna drive something over the mats to get that there?
Probably could back a machine in to pump it in. They actually, when they did that wall, portion of it, they brought a pumper in,
Right.
and then a portion of it, they used just a regular concrete truck. I mean, I haven't looked at the option of possibly, I'm not sure if there's any room from pumping it from the street up,
You could go over our garage.
over the garage.
I don't know.
I think there's a picture in there that shows it coming up from the street over the garage down to the beach.
No, they actually backed the
I've seen them go
pumper
right
truck
over
down.
houses.
Well, there's the pump truck showing
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
what they
Yeah.
do.
Houses.
That's what they do.
It won't be that much,
Looks like
concrete.
there was a lot more cement in the old fix than there will be on this one, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we're not looking to go that extensive.
Might not be too cost prohibitive to actually pump it down.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody from the audience got any questions?
I'm Ellen Kissel, 47 Prospect Street, and this is my husband Peter, and we think it's a great plan.
Okay, thank
Yep.
thank you. Wish of the board.
Dave, I got a couple quick questions for you. We're gonna want something written from the association.
Well, that can be in the condition,
Yeah. All right.
that and the mats.
And the mats for any work.
Didn't it say something about fuel, refueling?
I think that would go without saying.
Yeah, no refueling on the beach.
Yeah, one other quick thing is, it's showing hay bales. Now, I would assume that was more probably meant for the concrete footing. If you're gonna drive sheet piles, there's probably not even a need to have the hay bales.
Yep.
Especially if they're gonna be in the intertidal area, it's just gonna make a problem. So I would say don't even bother with them, really. Because the sheet piles don't create a lot of disturbance,
A little more extra sand on the beach isn't gonna hurt either, so.
right?
Okay, and you're not gonna be taking out anything from the old wall, right?
No.
Okay. Board all finished with any questions?
Yeah, well done.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Joe's motion, seconded by
Second.
Rob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
All right, I make a motion to grant with standard conditions, plus the added added condition of having mats on the beach, or if there's gonna be any machinery going on it. And, we'll need, something written from the association giving approval to use the beach. That'd be my motion.
Okay, Joe's motion,
Second.
seconded by Rob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
I used to make clams on your beach when I was a kid.
Yep, thank you.
Have a good day.
Right.
I don't think anybody's here for the next one.
So,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Wasn't sure where they were going.
I'll tell you.
Okay, notice of public hearing
Yeah.
I have a question. When you're-
pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts
After the
Wetland
meeting.
Protection
All
Act.
right.
General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, at 7:15 in the notice of intent for Richard J. Smith, trustee, care of J.C. Engineering, 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Massachusetts, 02538, to raise an existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling and install a new septic system for a property located on Assessors Map 124, Lot 74, 75, 76, and 77, Priscilla Avenue, East Wareham, Massachusetts.
Is anybody here for that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they're not gonna throw backs at us.
Shucks. I needed some exercise.
That's overrated.
Yeah, you're right.
got a file number. Yeah, came in like really late in the afternoon, I'm like, I don't know. I know, since they changed their site, it's messed up now. I don't like it at all. I even called them and talked to them about it.
I don't get emails anymore that they're supposed to email it to the
Right.
engineer.
I got some emails, like I said, late in the day, but their actual site still didn't show the numbers, and actually didn't even show that there was a filing for a couple of them.
Oh.
And then I got a number for it, and it didn't even list the project on their site.
Oh,
you know?
really?
So I don't know what's going on. But in any event, we did get a file number for this late in the day.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, this site is at 39 Priscilla Ave. And the project involves the demolition of an existing dwelling and the reconstruction of a new dwelling in the buffer zone to White Island Pond. The existing home is 20 by 38 with associated retaining walls, and these are to be removed, and there's a new 34 by 44-foot dwelling with an attached wraparound deck proposed approximately 17 feet from the edge of the pond. It appears that certain structures at the site are also not on the subject lot in terms of docks and riprap and retaining wall and so forth. And there was also an area at the site that looked like it was being used as a boat launch or boat ramp area. I did speak to Brad about these docks and other structures as to whether or not they were actually permitted or licensed. He said he was going to look into that. The new septic system for the structure would be at the furthest point on the lot from the edge of the pond, up by Priscilla Ave, but it would still be in the buffer zone approximately 71 feet from the edge of the pond. A proposed deck around the new dwelling is to be expanded within the 30-foot no activity zone compared to what currently exists. I would recommend that the proposed structures be scaled back so as not to increase structures within the 30-foot no activity zone. The proposed deck would be supported by sonotube footings and would also have a sunroom on a portion of the new deck. Hay bales and silt fence would be installed between the work and the resource area as shown on the plan. Again, we did get a DEP file number late, but at this point, I would recommend a continuance of the hearing for a revised plan to try to scale down the project and also to get some information relative to the structures that are there as to whether or not they are licensed and where that all stands.
Thank you. I ended up speaking to the applicant about the project. There are, the dock that's shown most to the north is actually the abutting dock. When he purchased the property, the existing wooden dock was there. The aluminum dock was something that he added. It's a seasonal one that he takes out, and it's not in the water today. I don't believe there's a license on that. He doesn't have an issue with going forward with pursuing that or whatever license is needed for those items that he has.
Can I ask you a quick question before you move on?
Yep.
Did you say that one of the docks was the neighbor's dock?
The one to the north
Oh, that one, okay.
is actually the neighbor's.
All right, but the other two, okay, yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So the dock itself that's here was probably part of a pre-existing dwelling that existed at number 35 Priscilla. It's the kind of the gravel driveway area. Now, I remember I talked to Dave earlier today about looking back. It was in 2010 that we ended up looking into doing a septic upgrade. I found copies of the field cards I printed.
Okay.
Just to show that there was a structure there. I also spoke with the applicant about the boat ramp. He said he's never used it as a boat ramp.
Okay.
He does use that, I think it's the canoe basin that's just around the corner there.
Yeah.
So he's never used it. They use it as a beach area. In regards to the structure itself, I took a look at some square footages and have highlighted a plan here. I just want to pass around. It's basically a comparison of, well, I don't give any numbers on it, but I highlighted the work or the structures that are within the 30-foot. Currently, the main structure is within the 30-foot buffer zone. It also has a wraparound deck that's on the water side and on the north side of the dwelling. It also has on the south side where the basement access is, there's a precast concrete or poured concrete step and stoop and little ramp area that goes into the basement. So if you take that into account, there's about 144 square feet of house, 404 square feet of deck, and about 42 square feet of that impervious walkway there. It's about 590 square feet of, I guess, structure / impervious. Not all impervious, because that deck it's pervious underneath that deck. Post the even though it seems bigger, we did pull it away from the pond. The house itself is roughly about 15 square feet. We're almost follow that 30-foot offset with the main house. The sunroom is 180 square feet. That is a roofed structure, pervious underneath it. And the deck itself is 286 square feet with some of those steps that extend within the 30, and that's 481 square feet. So it's about 100 square feet less in area within the 30-foot no-touch zone. So there is we're not increasing the square footage within that, even though we're expanding. It's kind of pulling back and relocating it.
So let me just see if I am following this. So the existing home and deck, which is this.
It's all this.
Right, it's all this, but I'm saying what's in the 30-foot is this.
Correct.
So if you built some decking like within that area that's already deck, then I think that would be okay, but you're kind of pushing it out into this area where there's nothing built right now.
Yes, that's correct, but we're also pulling it away from the pond and removing deck where there currently is deck. Currently, it's the deck's like 4 feet off the back property line, 4.4. And the new deck's about 9.9, so actually,
Looks almost like an even swap, almost.
on scaled, it's a little more than 6 feet back away from the water. 9 feet where that stairway is. So I know we're widening it, and I know we're conscious of expansion within the 30 feet. We've tried it before, expanding a deck lengthwise and been denied, but
Yep.
in this case here, we're pulling everything away to provide a better buffer off of the pond, and we're not actually decreasing the amount of structure by about 100 square feet within that 30-foot buffer area. The area that's expanding is just either grassed area at the moment, so it's not like they're cutting any trees or brush down to put a deck up. And that deck is on that side, it's a walkout, so it'll be 1 story up, a standard roughly 8 feet above grade. So it's not sitting on the ground.
Dave, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You were speaking.
I'm wondering, what are they going to be doing with this sunroom? Are they going to be putting windows in? Is it a 3-season sunroom? Is it, is this a place they're going to be living in the sense of using all the time? Because, it will keep away the mosquitoes and all that sort of thing.
No,
So it's really not a deck, it's a sunroom.
The proposed sunroom is a sunroom. It's roofed and walls or windows.
Walls and
Yeah,
windows.
3-season, no heat, just a 3-season room.
And what's underneath? Is it all insulated underneath? the
I'm
deck?
assuming they would probably insulate it, just to try to keep some of the heat in there. But yeah, it's not a deck.
No,
We're aware of that.
it's not
yeah.
a deck,
No.
yeah. And how big is the proposed sunroom?
It's 10 feet by 18 feet, 180 square feet.
Thank you.
Rob? What's keeping you from pushing the building a little closer to Priscilla Ave?
I was trying to maintain a 20-foot setback from the street, at least 20. So
Looks like-
there's about 2 feet or so that could be adjusted to 2.5 feet maybe.
So if the building moves 2.5 that way and that puts us 8 feet into the no-touch zone instead of 10? Is that correct?
Yep.
The, I mean, just by definition, a no-touch zone is no touch. And we all know that the proposed sunroom is kind of a cheat. That would be if I was building it, you know.
So it'd be, in other words,
If the deck was 8 foot and the building was moved 2.5, we'd be
Or
looking
could you move the building even more than 2.5? Can you, can
at, well,
impose,
you've got a
can
20,
you, I know, but can you
actually-
impinge upon that as opposed to impinging upon the no, the 30-foot no-touch zone?
yeah, I just can't speak to how they really don't like the offsets being encroached
No, it
upon
looks
either, so.
different.
I guess my thought is, that, you know, if we have to encroach upon it, and we can gain 2.5 feet there and cut the deck to, that part of the deck to 8 feet, we've made 4.5 feet, we've almost taken half of the problem away. We still have a problem, and I'm not sure if we should have a problem, I guess.
Is there any potential to change the shape of the house? In other words, make it longer along the pond versus this way?
Almost turning it.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a brand-new house, so it can be it could be, you know, a different configuration. Again, they may have a certain design in mind, but we're trying to accomplish a certain thing, so if something can be shifted or changed, then that option should be looked into, you know?
There's obviously, an option. The house itself is ranch style, similar to what's there today. Obviously, it would be shifting forward and coming up foundation about 3 feet higher, so it's still just a ranch style, and the basement walkout way, we'll have some living space in the basement as well. I guess that's an option. I was just comparing to pre-existing. I know there's a 30-foot no-touch. This site's pretty much been disturbed completely, front to back, side to side. So we just looked at trying to decrease the amount of structure within that 30-foot. It does provide a better setback off of the wetland or off the pond, and at the same time, just it maintains the shape that these owners wanted at this point. I mean, there's always options of rotating stuff, but
Sure.
what ultimately are we gonna gain if we gain an extra 4 feet? I mean, it's,
Well, if you,
I know I can look at 2.5 feet, that's good. I can look at maybe 8 feet out or something. I could talk to the homeowners. I don't want to make that call
yeah,
tonight.
No,
I'm not asking you to, I'm just throwing it out there, but I
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
I personally think that, you know, kind of the definition of no touch is
Yeah.
no touch. And if you change the configuration of the house a bit, and even, I don't know if it counts, but if, I'm not sure how far you can cantilever a porch, but if the porch part that was overhanging the no touch had no poles under it, then that's actually a no touch, and maybe you could get away with that.
Yeah, we've
It's still,
tended to not
It's two?
consider that,
Or
yeah.
it's still, yeah.
It's
It's
still
still
an
encroaching.
overhang? Okay, I wasn't sure if that was an
So,
encroachment or not.
best scenario would be to try to reshape it to minimize the amount of work that has to happen in that zone,
Yeah,
as
no
much
touch.
as possible.
Yeah.
You know, as it is, there's the border of the house is right on the 30. Well, you can't dig a hole without going over that. Now you've got heavy equipment
Again, but the house...
6 feet into the 30 feet zone.
The house already sits there. The house is,
Right.
what, 12 feet off of the pond, so
Right.
we're taking, I think, the amount of house within the 30 is 144 square feet of foundation, and theoretically, we're going down to 7 square feet of sonotubes to support that. Again, there's a roof over the sunroom, but it's
Right.
pervious underneath, so if any water does kind of drain underneath that from sides or through the deck, it does provide some infiltration, so.
Right. You know, it's an insulated sunroom, and, it's not,
Well, I know,
it's a
I'm not,
livable room. I mean, it's gonna end up a 4-season room.
Yeah.
If it's insulated, it will.
Building department. I don't like cantilever. Cantilever can open up a can of worms for you.
I was just looking for a
Yeah,
workaround.
yeah, I know. I thought about it before too, but after previous experiences with cantilever, next thing you know, it'll be over the pond.
pretty close to it now.
Yeah, it's just about there, but I mean, you cantilever it and, no, well, we might as well go right to the water's
Okay,
edge now, you
condition
know?
in, no diving boards.
On the deck.
Okay, you set?
Yeah, I'm not happy, but I don't have any more questions.
Yeah. Jim?
Nothing.
Joe?
All right, there's one thing that I do see, and I mentioned it before, and I wanted us to get something written down, but I actually do see a net gain where they're pulling more out of that no activity zone. That's one thing I like to have people take in the back of their head, because they could actually rebuild that whole house in at that, the way it stands right now. So we are getting a net gain. I just want to have you keep that in the back of your head. I understand what you're saying. The other question I have is, Dave, would you recommend some sort of a barrier around the leaching area on the water side?
Yeah, as far as the design, is there any requirement, this has to be a D-night system?
Yeah, he's got that listed on here.
So what about in terms of the requirement for a membrane to be put in? Is that needed here or not?
Not necessary. There's no issues of breakout. It's not too close to a structure, so not
It's not a requirement.
relevant in this situation here.
How many months out of the year is this place going to be used?
Right now, it's just a summer home. I'm not sure if they're going to change that
All right, 'cause it looks-
same.
This
Same.
particular denitration usually takes about 3 months before it starts working optimal, just so you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to look at it as it's gonna be used
Yeah.
year-round, you know,
Well, these systems work better if they're used for year-round.
right?
Okay, no other questions.
Mary?
Is there gonna be any lawn in this area?
I would think that lawn on the side of the dwelling, maybe in the front, underneath the deck, probably is some type of crushed stone. It's, most of that area is kind of a Cape Cod grass, not highly manicured lawn, but some type of
Number down to that,
stabilization there.
you know, this driver's coming this way.
They're willing to use
so
like,
we're back 10 feet.
slow release.
'Cause they can't
Yeah,
work
that's,
on that.
yeah, that's
Put
fine.
that into
Right.
the,
That's almost standard nowadays.
well,
All right.
yeah, but some are better than others.
Set?
Yep.
Set. Anybody in the audience? Okay. Wish of the board,
Guess
You
we're
wanna
going to continue this.
and do it and see what else they can do.
Yes.
Yeah. Does January 3rd work for you, or do you think you may need more time than that?
That's fine.
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue this to January 3rd.
Second.
Joe's motion, seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okey-dokey.
Thank you.
Do you need this back, Brad?
I'll hold on to it.
Brad,
If it changes.
Yeah, if you don't need it, I'll keep it, but if you,
I don't need it.
okay.
Brad, it looks like if they could just pick that up and switch it just a little bit.
I'll see what they can do. It's up, they had a house plan already prepared,
Yeah.
but I'll talk to them and maybe.
They've already figured out which windows the sun's coming through.
Yeah.
Make a new
Or if they
window.
turn it, they'll have more house
sun.
exposed to the pond.
Yeah, they had gable on the back, so it was vaulted ceiling, more windows, but I think the driveway side gets most of the sun in the afternoon, so it might be nice to have the high gable on that side.
Hey, a quick question for you while Brad's still here. Would it be better for them to actually put those docks right into this thing here? Or is that a totally different animal as far as the licensing goes on that?
Well, it's a different scenario. I mean, I guess they could do that, but then you'd have to,
Still
you know,
end up having to go-
modify the notice, and we didn't really include that in the hearing as far as the work, so we'd have to re-advertise,
Yeah,
Okay,
Existing anyways,
so,
okay.
basically.
and filing fees.
and filing fees, yeah.
Okay. We're good. Anybody have a chance to review the October 4th, 2017 minutes?
I did.
Brad, have a nice Christmas.
Yeah, you took.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, have a nice Christmas, Brad. All right, what's your feelings on it?
Did that get corrected, Dave? Just on the vote on,
Yes, Kelly
Okay.
did change that.
do you guys, have you already looked at it, or do you want to take a look at it?
I haven't looked at it, I haven't, was I here?
And why not?
Yes, you were.
And
Now, why not?
Mary wasn't.
You want to take a quick look?
Sure,
You got 35 seconds.
no problem, I'm quick.
Take 40.
I looked at it, I didn't see any problem.
Ooh,
It fit my limited memory.
Well, I don't know if you guys are on the email.
Vote then, I think, yeah.
They should be all on it now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
She's very good about posting this stuff on the email.
Yeah, actually, I got the minutes, but I couldn't open the
Agenda?
this. Yeah. It was kind of, I've managed to open them all before, but it must
Yeah.
have been a glitch somewhere.
Yeah, maybe.
Might have been on my
That-
end. I
Yeah,
don't know.
now that you
That
mention it,
happens.
there
I've
was
had
2
some I
boxes,
couldn't.
yeah, one I could open, one I couldn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's right. That's
Okay,
right.
Find out about that.
You get one, and the next one you can't get.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The pier that went in today,
All right, so no questions on that, right?
no question.
Let's take care of this. Motion to approve the minutes?
All right, motion made by Joe, seconded by
Put it back on.
Alicia. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one
Abstain.
abstention. Okay, so it's 501.
This one's right, it's 9, I think.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
My question is the pier that was approved on the pond.
Yeah.
Does that have to leave room for people walking along the shoreline so they can get by?
It does. So on these freshwater deals where they're so low to the ground, people can just walk over it or around the front end of it. They don't need stairs because it's not up in the air
There's no
like
tide
the
to contend
saltwater.
with.
Do know that. Okay, so.
But yes, they do have to have the public access, yeah.
If it's a public pond.
Okay.
Do you want another motion?
Certificate of compliance, huh? Certificate of compliance, Edith
Percival.
Percival.
Yeah, this was a project at 94 Highland Shores Drive. This is in the Weeannick Shores area, and this was for a septic upgrade that was done years ago, and they just never got the certificate of compliance. It's all done, so I would recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Second.
Joe's motion, seconded by Alicia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay, certificate of compliance, Mark Rizzoli. I got that one right.
Yeah. This was for a new pier construction that just went in probably within the last 5 or 6 months, off of Onset Ave into Butler's Cove. And so that project has also been completed according to the order, so I would recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance for that.
So moved.
Joe's motion, who wants it?
They're
Rob?
messing with you now, Ken.
Rob, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Yeah, we got competition now.
Echoes, I hear echoes.
Who dies with the most seconds wins.
I don't know about that. Okay, David, you got any discussions you want to go over here? Any bills, appointments, or reappointments,
No, I don't have anything of that nature.
stewardships? You guys are all set, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Take a motion. How about a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Mary to adjourn at 8:25.
So,
So moved.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, you can shut it down now.